This vidcast has been made possible by Chris Snell Media and Sound Production. For bookings for voiceover work, on-camera, motivational speaking, and DJing at your next event, email info@chrissnell.co.za. To find out more about me, visit my website, chrissnell.co.za. Enjoy today's program. Sandra, what a pleasure. Thanks for coming on Having a Cuppa. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here with you.
Well, the feeling is mutual. We met, of course. There's a companion podcast that I do, a live stream on Fireside Chat with Daniela Park from Doing It Sober Live. And Sandra, you and I also have another friend in conjunction with the Empowered to Recover, in which you're going to be speaking this coming November, Jay Barnard. But before we get to all the niceties, you told me that, in fact, you have a medical background. You were a trauma nurse or an emergency care nurse. Tell me a little bit about that story of yours.
Yes, so I am a registered nurse. When I first started my nursing career, I started out in the emergency department, and I worked in the emergency department for about 5 years. And then I actually started getting symptoms of PTSD from my job. And I was no longer able to facilitate in that capacity as a trauma nurse anymore. I started having panic attacks at work, and I was pretty much ashamed and embarrassed that I suffered in silence and I didn't ask for help. I actually ended up quitting that job.
Now, I'm sure whenever you work in that field of medicine as a nurse, you see quite some god-awful things. Was it because of the things that you saw that ultimately you said, I can't do it anymore?
Yeah, well, actually, it was a lot of the things that I saw, and I really wasn't, I guess, trained or know how to process those things emotionally and mentally.
Of course.
And so after so long of seeing all these very traumatic things and not processing those, it just kind of all built up. And then I just started having nightmares of certain cases in my sleep, and I would just start panicking.
I can imagine, a lot with, like, for example, police work. It's a profession for which you need to be called for. And that what you speak of, seeing those bodies on those what do you call those beds, seeing that, for example, and then perhaps even seeing a lifeless body go by, it affects one's mentality. And do you think perhaps that was the origin of your post-traumatic stress disorder, from consistently seeing all of that horrible images on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I think it was. I also, for me, it wasn't just like the deceased. It was just trauma, physical trauma to bodies, without going into detail, just things that are like brutal for a human to see and experience.
And whenabouts in your journey did you start to discover that, first off, PTSD wasn't just shell shock for soldiers who came back from the battlefield, that it actually applied to you as well?
When I couldn't function anymore, that's when I realized like I had PTSD and something was wrong with me.
Now tell me exactly what consists of post-traumatic stress disorder today. What are the symptoms?
What are my personal symptoms? Or
personal
what
symptoms,
are...
yeah.
Okay, so for me, it presents, well, I've been in therapy and treatment for 2 years, so mine presents differently now. But in the beginning, mine presented as flashbacks. I would have dreams. I would wake up panicking, gasping for breath. I wouldn't be able to breathe. I'd be holding my chest and just gasping for air. My palms would get sweaty. I would have triggers, whether it was a thought or a feeling or something that triggered that, and I would just have trauma responses. I actually used to have them so severe that I would like black out while these panic attacks, trauma responses were happening.
My
Mhm.
golly.
I wouldn't remember them. The only thing I would remember is like gasping for breath, almost like waking up gasping for breath.
And I'm sure night sweats as well during the course of those
Yes.
episodes.
Yes, night sweats. Yes. Yes, it's a horrific thing to live through if you haven't
Sure.
experienced it. It's pretty brutal. And I think that's why I have so much of a compassion for people who struggle with PTSD or mental health or addiction
Mm.
because I've been there and it's a brutal hell.
What's interesting is, and you can agree with me, the last 2 years especially since the
Mhm.
start of when we all went into lockdown worldwide, matters of anxiety. I almost want to
Yes.
say agoraphobia because people were afraid to leave their house at one point, and
Yes.
PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder, because what's going to happen now? We can't leave our house. And we're caught between four walls and a door. So claustrophobia would also
Yes.
become a fact of play. It's surprising to see how all these factors have started to arise from the top. And people like myself, yourself, Jay, Daniela, Tim Lodgen, who's going to be on Empower to Recover with you, all of us are
Yes.
now actively taking a stance and saying, enough is enough. We need to start educating people, but presenting a side that is not clinical whatsoever. Because here's the reason why I
Right.
say it. You can have book knowledge. I mean, that's why you, after
Yes.
after all, you're from the East Coast. I'm led to understand. So if you go to a place like Cornell, for example, you go to Bronx Medical, and then from then on, if you want to get your MD or your doctorate for that, you go to Cornell Science for that matter. You can have the
Mhm.
book knowledge, but you don't have the street cred. So you're going to be clinical
Right.
about it. But then again, have the book knowledge and you have the field experience with it, bring it together, you've got a powerful weapon.
Yes.
Whereabouts did you ultimately decide to start talking about PTSD and mental health?
Actually, excuse me, after I started recovery. And after I started on my treatment journey, and after I had this hope, my hope came back because when you're struggling with that type of stuff, you're in a hopeless place.
Hmm.
You, it's hopeless. It's dark. It's a terrible place to be. So when I got hope again, I just got this love to help people go through this, and that's when I started talking about it.
Right. And how
It
about,
became it became not about me anymore. It became about me helping people because there's so many people out there that are struggling and suffering, and a lot of them in silence. So for me, that's when I started speaking up.
of course. And another thing I'd like to run by you, because we did this on Doing It Sober Live a couple of weeks ago. It's
Yes.
surprising to see how PTSD even extends itself to matters like narcissism and gender based violence. In your
Yes.
career as an influencer and bringing awareness to mental health stigmas and the like, has that crossed your path as well and the people that you talk with?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially in the narcissistic abuse, there's a lot of people that experience trauma and PTSD from that. That's yeah.
Tell me, how about did you go to start counseling? You are a counselor, am I right? Or are you just a motivational speaker and an influencer?
Yeah, so I'm not a counselor. I'm actually a resilience coach. I
Okay,
teach
coach.
people
I see.
emotional coping, not coping, emotional intelligence,
Oh,
resilience building.
nice.
Yes,
You
so
never told
different
me that.
techniques. Yes, so I created a program with 8 pillars, and it's called Rise and Resilience. And I go through all of the steps that I used for my life transformation. And I go through mindset exercises, emotional intelligence exercises, self reflection, self affirmations,
Hmm.
all of that. And so I'm just getting started in the coaching. So I haven't like released my program yet.
I want to ask you a little bit of a funny question, and it seems
Yes.
simple in premise, but I need to ask it. Emotional intelligence is at least the one upside we've seen sprout its head throughout these last 2 years or so. Here's the reason
Mhm.
why I say it, and if I didn't bring it up on the previous program, I'll bring it up here and now. If you disagree with me, please tell me where I am faulty at this.
Okay.
But you can agree with me that IQ tests are faulty. You know, kids who are in junior high going upwards up to senior high are thrown a paper in front of them. They don't exactly understand what it is that they have to be answering. And if they get a low
Right.
score, that low score is basically, so to speak, like a death curse that's being uttered out onto their
Mhm.
lives, which I think is unnecessary because emotional intelligence outweighs just plain old IQ. Everyone can be smart, but at
Yes.
the same time, I'm just going to whisper it, everyone can be stupid as well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, have you ever heard of emotional intelligence tests that have now started doing the rounds on the net?
I haven't actually.
I'm going to send you a link. I promise. You need to take this emotional intelligence test. What it is, for example, I might exaggerate on the number of questions, but it might be
Okay.
something to the excess of maybe 50 to 100 questions. And it's like, do you enjoy pizza? Do you enjoy TV? Do you enjoy sports? Do you enjoy walking out in nature? Are you,
Mhm.
do you like mathematics? Do you like history? Those kinds of basic questions. And then you have to answer yes, no, maybe, not at all. Um, and then based on the answer that you give, it tests you on your kinesics, it tests you on your visual aspect, it tests you on your psychological aspect, and then it recommends certain professions that
Mhm.
you can apply to based on your strengths and your weaknesses. It's like a SWOT analysis, but a lot more balanced. And I wish that we could have more. I wish we could have more tests like that. You agree? Because it's more
Yes.
uplifting. It's more neutral, in my humble
Yes.
opinion. And the coaching that you do, how exactly does it tie into the emotional intelligence part of it? You've got me curious here.
Um, so I teach a lot of self-awareness and increasing your self-awareness and being present in the moment, present with your thoughts and your feelings, and just being aware of the attachment to both of them and being aware of your triggers, being aware, all of those add up and help your emotional intelligence.
I see. I see. And you were in therapy for how long exactly before you started your own coaching program, or you started to develop, rather, your own coaching program?
Yeah, so about 2 years. And actually, aside from the therapy, I also trained with some top life transformational coaches for about 2 years.
Okay, and who are some of those coaches? Are those some of the coaches that we know?
No, I don't know. So Dave Scatchard,
I've
he
heard
is
of
a
Dave.
former NHL hockey player, and he's amazing, amazing life transformation coach. And also Adam Jablin. He is
Oh,
a recovery
nice.
coach. Yes, and he's also a top transformational life coach. So I have had the honor to train and be coached by those two amazing transformational life coaches.
And what are some of the things that they've taught you in helping you heal from, namely, post traumatic stress disorder and being
Mhm.
relieved from anxiety? What did you take away from them specifically?
So specifically, it's really, I want to say, pretty much rewiring your thoughts, getting rid of old negative belief systems, so many things, lifestyle changes, connecting with your higher power, uh, just so many things.
Wonderful. And how many people have come up to you, and you have done a lot of motivational speaking
Mhm.
as a whole? How many people have come up to you and said, "Listen, thank you for what you have shared. A lot of what you have experienced throughout your life and turning the negative on its head to a positive, I've experienced in my life." How many
A
have come up
lot,
to you?
a lot.
And
I'm gonna cry.
you're more than welcome to. Please do.
It's
Because remember,
a
this is
lot.
something that affects me as well. I've been in the
Yeah.
same situation that you have, not to the same degree, but I've also
Mhm.
seen dead bodies. I've also been
Yeah.
involved in a car accident. I've been involved in 5 attempted robberies, four in which I four in which I was all alone, and then the fifth one, which
Yeah.
was the big one, where my family and I were hogtied with
Mhm.
by 3 people. That stuff doesn't leave you. In fact, we're now at the 19th of September. At the 1st of September, 2022 has been exactly 12 years since that incident, and I still haven't forgotten it. So I'm exactly in the same position as what you are.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it must touch you. So you're more than welcome to feel emotional. I encourage it, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, so really what just gets me and what speaks to my heart is there's just so many people like myself who suffered in silence. And as a society, we are almost conditioned just to walk around with this fake smile on our face, like everything's okay. And we're almost conditioned to like not talk about or talk to anyone about our feelings or what we're going through. And that's just such a huge part of who I am and what I'm doing is trying to encourage people to speak up and tell them that it's okay.
And are you like one of the people who actually encourages? Because you know this as well as I of love
Mhm.
languages. Whenever we
Yes.
get stressed, of course, your heart races. You stop
Mhm.
breathing physically. Would you be one of the people that says, you know what, just lay a hand on that person and say, it's going to be okay,
Mhm.
to help them calm down?
Absolutely. Yes, and I teach actually a few different techniques to calm your central nervous system.
Would you mind sharing a couple of those?
Sure. So there's one that I have even done myself. Um, if I feel like a panic attack's coming on, or if I feel a trigger, or if I feel my anxiety getting really high, um, that one really simple one is to just close your eyes and put your hand over your heart and just breathe in for 5 seconds, and you feel your heart beating, and you focus on your breath and your heart. So you breathe in for 5 seconds. So that one helps.
Right.
Another one that really, really helps, and what this does is it takes your mind away from the trigger, whatever has triggered you. It takes your focus away. So this time, what I'm going to do is I am going to breathe in for 4 seconds. And while I'm breathing in, I'm going to say CALM, and I'm going to focus on my fingers and I'm going to focus on the letters. And that takes away, like I say it in my head as I'm breathing, and that takes away your focus on the trigger, your focus on the anxiety feeling, because you're breathing in slowly and you're focusing on your fingers. So it's almost like a brain pattern interrupt.
I actually like that very, very
Yeah.
much. I,
So you
I,
can either spell love or you can spell calm.
I want to actually take it a step further and say that what you've just shown me should be actually taught in schools, because how many kids actually freak out because of the
Yeah.
excess amount of pressure that they have to go through, especially
Yeah.
nowadays where it's
Right.
virtual learning and it's half capacity in the classrooms. There's those plexiglass panes up, and
Yes. Yes. So that's
they
what I do.
can't
I
talk
teach these
with their
small
friends.
techniques just to help you regulate your nervous system and, come back to reality, because we get that high anxiety, and people who have panic attacks actually leave reality for a few moments.
I
Like their
suffer
mind.
from very awful panic attacks a lot of
Okay.
times. I
Yeah.
have to tell you, I used to be a radio broadcaster for 6 years. I've now left that industry for a while. And the reason being is there's too much pressure, because you seem like the person who is similar to me. Like, if you have something that you need to do, you have a routine in order to get it done. No one's going to
Yes.
tell you different. You know what works for you. You have
Yes.
literally thrown the foundation. Why do you want someone literally going off on your ear like this? Because they can't do their jobs, but they're the ones telling you how to do your job. And I'm just painting with a broad brush here. So you're stressed. You have to concentrate. And, there have come times in my radio career where people would tell me afterwards, you are speaking like at the speed of a typewriter, because, we can't make out one or two sentences of what you have said. And then afterwards, it came out that I had been suffering panic attacks.
Mhm.
And I think it also stems from, prolonged a prolonged period of trauma from, trying to make sure that the pot was consistently boiling on the table when there was
Right.
only one salary coming in, dealing with 10 years of alcohol and drug abuse, and then afterwards having a bout of cancer, and not giving myself that time to actually process all of that, because you need to
Mhm.
process what has happened to you. And in correlation with PTSD, there's something called cancer survivorship, and I'll tell you full why that is. When you get the disease, you're preparing yourself mentally for the inevitable. It's the silent killer. But
Right.
when you get the diagnosis that you can either go into remission or even long-term remission or complete remission, you don't prepare yourself for that as well. And then all of a
Right.
sudden you come depressed. And this was brought under my attention from someone in the entertainment industry who said, you had these, when his psychologist said to him, you've had these two bouts of cancer, you had the big operation, you had to get this cut out. But the moment that you got the all clear, all of a sudden you became sad. The reason why is you were expecting the
Right.
inevitable. You didn't give yourself permission to say, I want to live.
Right.
I'm going to fight with all my might. So
Right.
that in correlation with PTSD can be a culpable factor in today's society now. Sure, that might perhaps create the impression that, you know, do we need to become sissies because we need to be afraid of every single given thing? No, we just need to be a lot more proactive in how we
Yes.
treat ourselves first and foremost through self-love, and how we treat others. I bring it back to the previous example where I said, you know what, you can be clinical and you can have all the book knowledge, but if you have the book knowledge and the street field experience, add those
Right.
together, you're a whole lot more effective in bringing that positive message across. You agree?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I have found for myself, it even helps like my credibility because not only am I a nurse with professional experience, I have personal experience with addiction and PTSD, which
Oh, you were
allows
an
me,
addict too.
yes.
For how long?
Yeah. So that's how I medicated my PTSD.
Oh
I
man, on
self-med.
opioids.
No, benzos. Well, first
Oh
I
my
started with the
stars.
Adderall. Yeah. Well, actually, my story, I actually, from the PTSD, I had a suicide attempt from suffering
Oh
in silence.
man, you never told me that.
Yes. Yeah. I don't think we really got dove deep into my story, but yeah. So I actually, from suffering in silence, I had a suicide attempt. And after that is when I got put on probably like 6 different medications, never having had a psych history and never have been on any psych meds or anything. But after that happened, that's how they medicated the PTSD. They put me on 6 different medications. And I was really like zombied out. I didn't know like
I
what
just
day
wanted
it
to
was.
say that's what Benzedrine does to you.
Yeah, it was awful. I mean, I was on like Adderall to be awake. I was on Xanax to go to sleep. They just loaded me up with just so many meds.
You could have qualified
Yeah,
as an extra on The Walking Dead.
yeah. You know what? And it's so. And you want to know what happened?
Please tell me.
What had happened was I was so zombied out. I like my memory was messed up, and I left a blanket near a space heater, and I burned my house down.
Holy shit.
Yes, went through a traumatic house fire, lost everything we had, and that's when I started abusing the benzos. Yep.
Holy
I stopped
mackerel.
taking I stopped taking the other medications, and then I just started taking the Adderall like crazy. I was awake for 4 or 5 days, and then I started taking the Xanax, and I was addicted to Xanax for about 2 weeks.
Whoa.
Yep.
My
Yeah.
stars. And ultimately, did you quit your addiction dry, or did you start working a program to combat that?
No, so actually, to create some awareness here, benzos is actually alcohol and benzos are about the two top things that if you just stop cold turkey, you'll just die. Like you
Yeah.
cannot, I mean, it will kill you. And I know that. So I actually was very resistant and I wouldn't go into a program. It was ego and pride because I'm a nurse. And I actually weaned myself I got the dosages of how to wean, and I took about 6 weeks, and my husband helped me, and we weaned down the dosage for 6 weeks. And that was
Wow.
probably the most brutal 6 weeks of my entire life.
Well, I can imagine. I mean, your system needs to adapt. And I mean, you've gone from this high dosage, all of a sudden you have to go less and less and less and
Yes.
less and less. I can't even begin to fathom what the withdrawal symptoms must be like. For example,
Horrible.
when I was on Hypnosil and I was on
Yeah.
Gen Pain, I literally threw up 3 days a week. 3 days a week.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, benzo withdrawal. I mean, I can only speak from my own experience, but for me, it was probably the most horrific thing I've ever experienced in my life. I have never experienced anything as hard as that. It was horrible. I can remember like screaming in my pillow because I wanted the Xanax so bad, and I could
Sure.
just feel the withdrawals. Like it was terrible.
Well, you
Terrible.
bring up something that I also want to share with you. I heard Bruce Dern went through the same thing, the actor, um,
Okay.
Vicodin addiction. Now, why do
Yeah.
we take why do we take Vicodin?
Feel pain.
Okay, so he was up to 23 extra strength Vicodin a day, and
Mm.
the same with what you did. Went to a specialist who subsequently decreased him on a dosage of Vicodin until eventually down to one tablet and then no tablet whatsoever. So, do you think as well, just quickly, and then we'll get back to the PTSD awareness issue and mental health issue. Do you think your experience as a nurse, because I'm assuming you have a background as well in pharmacology, that it actually helped you as well to combat that,
Yeah.
your
It
dependence to benzo?
Yes, I really think so, because if I didn't probably have the knowledge that I needed to wean off of it, and that you had to do it by certain dosages and things like that, that probably I wouldn't have been able to do it successfully. And I would say, just to disclaim this, I do not recommend or condone anyone to withdraw from benzos at home. Like, don't I recommend you go to a treatment center, because benzo withdrawal can actually kill you.
It can. It can, as a
Yeah.
matter of fact. You
Yeah.
know,
So please seek medical attention if you're watching this and you're going to stop taking your benzos. Like, don't just stop taking them. Go to a treatment center.
of course, absolutely. You know, I was about to say the same thing. What I found out with regards to painkillers and antidepressants and sleeping tablets, they're
Mhm.
antihistamines in effect, and they're the core component in heroin and in fentanyl.
Yes. Yes.
How scary is that?
Yes. Man, some of these pills that they give us, like, oh,
But in
I
any
just have,
event,
yeah.
coming back to your coaching, you spoke about resilience coaching, being aware of your triggers,
Yes.
um, practicing mindfulness, and becoming present. That's another core concept that I think a lot of people in society today misunderstand fully. Explain
Yeah.
to me the concept of being present, getting out of your own way, those two core concepts. How would you explain those two?
Um, Let me see. So I think for me, like, just being present is just being able to appreciate what's going on around me, and just to be able to be, like, instead of like doing, just be able to be, and just being connected to like everything around me and nature, and just being present in the moment, and not worrying about tomorrow, or having things on your mind from the past. And what
Mm,
really helps with that is meditation.
right. Now, if we're talking about meditation, we're not just talking about the classic transcendental meditation. There can be various forms of meditation. What are some of the meditation techniques that you have used in your coaching experience?
So I have used, and what works best for me is guided meditation with breathing. The breathing exercises really, really help you. They help your self awareness, they help healing trauma. So the guided meditations. I've also done vision guided meditations. Um, for me, I can't really like quiet my mind to do the vision ones. So
Right.
the audio guided ones work best for me.
Nice. No,
Yes.
absolutely. And I mean, it's exactly like those ASMR videos that you get on YouTube nowadays. The guided meditation I'm referring to, where you just hear those
Oh,
background sounds like the valley, you hear the sea, which helps you calm your mind, and then you get uh,
right.
people who tell you, take a few deep breaths in, see the
Yes.
sea, see the waves massaging the shore. That is incredibly relaxing. And I must tell you, when I was in dry sobriety before I started working a program, I relied a lot on those guided meditation videos just to help me to sleep.
Yes, yes. And I think people don't realize that like those meditations are like medication. Like it really calms your system, it calms your mind, it helps increase your self-awareness, your consciousness. Like I feel like meditation is so important, especially for people who have struggled with trauma, emotional trauma.
Uh, isn't that a matter of fact? But now let's take the negative and switch it over to a positive. How
Yeah.
would it be that you started your NPO, Open Light for the World, and Rockstar Recovery?
Yes. So, actually, I when I started life coaching, I like I said, when I got hope again and I had like an amazing life transformation, I ignited that passion to help people again. And because I'm a nurse, it's always been my calling to help people and save lives. And so it just kind of came back in a different way. Instead of me going back to a hospital to, save lives there, I opened up a nonprofit called Love and Light to the World. And our vision is for everyone in the world to come together, um, lighting the world up with love on the same mission to transform and save lives. And our mission is to create awareness, support, and education for mental health and addiction. And we have an awareness project, which is called the Light It Up Project. And we have these bands. It is awareness for emotional and mental wellness. And there's visible support for anyone struggling or suffering with mental health or addiction. And it says hope, hashtag light it up.
No.
And with that project, we also have everyone on the internet and socials use hashtag light it up with the yellow heart anytime they post any kindness, wellness, or recovery posts on socials. And we also have yellow heart decals that go on houses and cars.
Oh, nice.
Yes, and this is visible support for anyone struggling or suffering with mental health or addiction. And so far, we've saved 2 lives that we know of.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And let me show you, these 2 hearts up there are symbolic of the 2 lives that this project has saved. And our goal is to light this whole wall up yellow with lives saved.
Well, you know what? I can assure you as well, as we steadily approach Christmas time, that's going to start to increase and increase more and increase more. And help me right, Rockstar Recovery is also your banner, right?
Yeah, and so actually, we have a social media support platform called Rockstar Testimony, and on Rockstar Testimony, daily you can find recovery tips, wellness information, inspiration, encouragement, different things on there from our proud partners. We share all of their content, and so it's a support platform for mental health and addiction recovery.
Wow. And you're operating those two handles full time. Your NPO and Rockstar Testimony. Sorry, I got it
Yeah,
wrong.
well, Rockstar Testimony is just our support platform. It's our organization's support platform. And
Neat.
we just started our free virtual peer support groups. And so every day of the week, we have free virtual peer support groups with an anonymous option. And there's all different topics. We also just launched our free wellness workshops. And we also have free coaching resources, and then we have free resource links, and we have multiple podcasts for mental health and addiction recovery from our partners. And you can find all of those on our website.
Why don't you let Having a Cuppa be one of those podcast references as well?
Yes, absolutely. You partner with us. We'll share all your information. We'll put your podcast on our website and in our link tree. And that's the vision for the world to come together.
I would
And
love for
that's
that
what we're
to
doing.
tell people, in
Oh,
fact, that's why this audio podcast is now expanded to a video podcast. It's nice hearing the voices, but if they can see the voices, put a name to the face as well, like with that poster that you've got up behind you, it just aids
yes.
the experience more. That's why I undertook this project, and that's why I undertook the project that I did with Danny, because, this is my strong point. So I'm using this strong point to bring awareness all over the world, or to aid
Yes.
in bringing awareness all over the world. I'm not the king of the castle, but helping bringing awareness. Tell me something as well. You also have been a motivational speaker. How the hell did that happen? Because you don't have a speaking background. You're from medicine.
Yeah. So that happened because I just had the passion. I suffered in silence for so long. I just had the passion to help other people unmute their voices. And so I actually went to a speaking academy. I learned how to build a speaking business. I learned how to write a keynote speech. I learned how to do all of that stuff. And I just started speaking on stages.
And you must have enjoyed that experience 6 ways to Sunday,
I
taken to the stage.
that's my passion. That speaking is my speaking on stage, speaking to people, pouring into people. That's my passion. And so I've been uh building the nonprofit in the background, creating all of the services, all of the policies, procedures, like all of that. And I'm pretty much almost done with like all of that. So then I'll be able to go out and speak more.
Well, you know
But
what?
that's where it is for me. That's where my passion is.
I think the next route for you would be TEDx, my humble opinion.
I've sent in two I got brave and sent in two things, whatever they're called.
Yeah?
But I didn't get picked. But so I'm gonna
Oh,
keep trying.
well, you know what? Try, and try again.
Yeah,
Try, and
I'll
try
be on
again.
TEDx one day.
I had a lady on here. She's going to be on the show before your one premieres. Christine Erico. She suffers from cleft lip and palate, and
Oh,
she's done a TEDx, and she said it's a frightening experience. If you want, I'll even send you contact details of a guy who helps you prep your TEDx. He's a stand-up comedian by the name of Frank King, and he's also a mental health comedian because he
I've
speaks about
connected with him. A couple years ago, I've connected with him.
wonderful guy. You'll enjoy him.
Yes.
Two pieces. He's a TEDx coach par excellence because, like with us both here, this is his this is his talent.
Yes.
But tell me now, with regards to all the work that you have done, becoming a coach and coaching clients privately, and ultimately starting these two NPOs, Love and Light to the World and Rockstar Testimony as a partner, and then plus also taking to the stage as a speaker, that must have done such a absolute positive for your self-image and your overall well-being as a person and being a light to the world, hasn't it?
Yes, absolutely. There is no feeling in this world better than helping people and saving lives. Like there is just not. And just to know that you're being used to make impact in other people's lives is just powerful in itself.
And you never expected to be able to do this kind of work. I mean, it just started
No.
coming one upon the other, hasn't it?
Yes. Yep.
Now tell me,
Absolutely.
you're going to be taking to the stage in November in Vancouver, right?
Yes. Yes. And empower to recover.
Hmm. And you're going to be sharing the stage with a mutual friend of mine, of ours, I should say. He's my surrogate brother, Jay Barnard. Love you, Jay, if you're busy watching or listening to this.
Yeah.
Boy, there's one sentence that I can use to describe Jay Barnard, a talkative teddy bear, because he doesn't keep
Aw.
quiet.
You're so right. You're so right.
But I mean, give him props. He's been working very hard. He's been working very hard to bring awareness, not just only in North America, but expanding the feelers to other parts of outside the North, especially with you and with Tim
Yes.
from the US and so on and so forth.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So, Chris, where are you located?
I'm in South Africa. I'm on
Oh
the other
my
side of the
goodness.
world.
Yes. Well, you know what? Partnering with us, I'm going to send you these bands and you can get these bands out in South Africa.
Darling, I would love to.
Save
I
some
would love
lives
to.
in South Africa, Chris.
Well, you know what? I've tried to get involved in a couple of projects. I mean, that's just how this podcast started. I was trying to light the fires under people here in Southern Africa to tell them, you know what, it's okay to not necessarily be anonymous. It's okay to recover
Right.
out loud, and it's okay
Right.
to not be okay. But
Hmm.
don't keep quiet. Don't keep quiet because that's the silent killer. Talk about it. But
Yes.
unfortunately, South Africa
Yes.
still is also institutionalized. If you have a problem, there's one route, and that is either an inpatient or an outpatient facility. If you've got the bucks, they'll help you. But if you don't, well, sorry, old boy, we can't take you in pro bono. We can't do it for free. And that's
Right.
how this entire podcast began. I don't make any money out of this. You know, I've been trying to attract sponsors to advertise on the business so we can exponentially grow the audience. But you know what? If there are people out there listening and watching from my country, and if they want to remain anonymous, that's fine. But all I'm expecting them to do is just listen and take the advice, what you have shared and what Jay has shared in numerous times, and what Jay Braxton has shared, and what Tim has shared, Tim Lodgen, and,
Yes.
and talk and talk and
Yes.
take some of these tools.
Yes.
We've only got
Right.
this one life. Don't
Yes.
waste it.
Right. And then if you need services, anybody listening, we have at Live and Light to the World free virtual peer support groups where you can go into a safe space and there's an anonymous option. You can shut your screen off. But if you need to talk, you need support, you need help, we're there for you.
And tell me, those virtual peer groups, are they
Yeah.
on Zoom or on like this, Skype?
Nope, they're ran through Zoom.
Okay.
Yep, you can find them on our website, and they're ran through Zoom. And it's a real easy process. You just click on it, you get in there, you have an option to turn on your camera and mic or not.
Wonderful
And
stuff.
it's just a safe space for healing.
I want to talk again about the motivational speaking because that's something
Yes.
that I also do. I do motivational speaking. I've done seminars.
Okay.
I've spoken with women, and I've also spoken with men because my passion as well, apart from mental health stigma, and you can agree with me on this, even though you haven't had the disease yourself. Um, if men, for example, have had testicle cancer, or you know what, let me just turn the tables in reverse genders here for a moment. When a
Okay.
woman has had either cervical cancer or ovarian cancer, there is that risk that they, if they have not conceived before, that they might not conceive whatsoever. It's the same stigma with men who have had testicle cancer or what I've had, uh, skin cancer, or any
Okay.
type of cancer, that there might be a recurrence and that it affects their well-being, it affects their mental health, it affects their their sexuality.
Hmm.
I want to talk to people about those hard-hitting stuff, but here's the tricky part, or here's the tip of the iceberg, I should say. You need to add humor into it because
Yes.
life is too tough.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you also incorporate humor in your motivational speaking?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I asked, did you incorporate humor as well into your motivational speaking, or did you just mention facts just right off the bat?
No, I use humor as well. Absolutely use humor.
Oh man, and it's your natural humor. You just start beginning with a premise, then all of a sudden you just present them with the kicker, and then everyone is roaring.
Yes, yes, absolutely. It's such a way to connect with your audience too. They
Absolutely.
Laughter is just such a human connection.
And then as we start to round off, I feel I need to ask this with your coaching. Do you do coaching exclusively, for example, for women, or do you do unisex or even children for that matter of fact?
So I do unisex. I haven't done any children. And I actually haven't coached any men. But I'm not exclusive to women. It just really seems in our society, it's usually the women that are the first to reach out for coaching and that
Sure.
are ready to invest in that.
It's a
It's a
reasonable
little
assumption to make because the reason being is there's also this stigma that men shouldn't talk because, you know,
right.
if you want to be the alpha,
Hmm.
you have to bury it beneath. It's so funny. This morning, my time, I had a interview with a gentleman by the name of Simon Rennie, who runs Mindful Men, which is a
Okay.
podcast with regards to being mindful of your actions as men, as husbands, as fathers. And the big problem amongst men is that they feel like they're going to be ostracized if they talk about, I've got depression, I've got anxiety, I've got bipolar, I've got erectile dysfunction, insert whatever criteria you will. It's okay. It's not going to affect your status as a husband, as a father, as an employee, or as an employer. The cruxus is talk. And if you're not comfortable talking to, for example, another man about what it is that you feel, who's sitting across from you from the screen? Talk to someone like Sandra Lee here. She will
Right.
listen. She'll become emotional with you. We need to start showing emotion more, I think.
Yes.
And I'm not just
Yeah,
saying men, but men and women. It's okay to be emotional.
it is. Absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing is everyone struggles sometimes. You're not abnormal because you're going through a hard time or you're experiencing anxiety or experiencing something. Everyone experiences those things. And it's okay to talk about it.
And then lastly, what I want to ask you, Sandra, if there are people who are currently listening or even watching this on YouTube later on, can you give them some advice whether they are having a mental health conflict or a problematic drug problem? What advice will you give them stemming from your own experience?
What advice would I give them?
To
I would
motivate
say,
them.
yeah, if you're struggling and you're feeling like you're in a hopeless place, I want you to know that there is hope. And I want you to know that you have a light inside of you that you can ignite and you can bounce back from your situation and become resilient. You do not have to be stuck in the place you're stuck in. There is so much hope, there's so much light, there's so much life to live. This is just a temporary thing, and all you have to do is reach out for support.
Thank you very much for that, Sandra. Just quickly, two things. You're going to be taking the stage exactly when in November in Vancouver on Empower to Recover?
November 19th.
November 19th. And if people have heard or seen this, again, to repeat myself, how can they get in touch with you or ultimately read up about you via Hope and the Light in the World?
Yeah, so you can visit our website at www.loveandlighttotheworld.org. You can pick up a t-shirt and a wristband and a decal. It's a combo supporter pack, and those proceeds help us create awareness, support, and education. We're trying to raise money for a scholarship fund, and you can find all of that with our services on our website. We're now accepting donations and sponsorships, and that's where you can find all of that.
Well, you know what, Sandra, it's been an absolute joy. I mean, this has been one of those conversations that begin off absolutely normal, and then all of a sudden it just goes up and up and up and up and up until it reaches a peak. And it stays there. It doesn't dip whatsoever. I want to thank you so much for coming onto the show. You're an absolutely joy to speak to. And you know what? You have to come back. You have to come back and we have to talk about your story further. I mean, there's a lot more that you can share.
There's so much.
And I'd love to hear more about the victory stories. I want to see more of those yellow hearts on your wall.
Yes, absolutely. We just got to create more awareness. We got to get more bands out. We got to get more people to know about this. So that's
Sandra,
what we're
all the
trying
best to you, darling.
Thank you so much.
So it is here where we have to make a pit stop, but don't fret, we'll be back soon. In the meantime, tell your friends, join us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, and Podcast One. Until we see you again, this was Having a Cuppa for the week. See you soon.